This is episode 23 of Give Me a Chance, and it is your host speaking, Vittoria. Hi everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Give Me a Chance. I hope you have enjoyed last week's episode, and as promised, I have a really interesting new episode ready for you this week. Shawn, our guest for today, will share his story of how he got the chance to change his life after being in prison for a few years, and how that had a major impact on his mindset. Let's get ready for Shawn's story. Hi Shawn, welcome to Give Me a Chance. How is everything going?
Oh, everything's going good. As usual, busy as always. But things are going, they're looking up, especially now that, the warmer season is coming around. So the moving businesses will start to pick up a bunch more. But things are looking really good so far over on this end.
You say you have a moving business, right? But you own a lot of businesses too, I learned, right?
Correct.
What kind of businesses are they?
Okay, so I co-own two moving companies. I also am the owner of a media production company, mostly producing music, but also I like to, in my free time, do spoken word poetry. So those are my creative team. We like to make videos with those poems and create beautiful content out of that. So that's mostly what the media production company is going to be. And then I'm also in the process of getting my clothing line, Ironborn Apparel 21, jumped off the ground.
Did you always grow up in an environment where entrepreneurship was so facilitated?
No, actually, slightly, but not so much, really. Really, I grew up in a rough environment. So I grew up in Trenton, New Jersey, and growing up, my house environment was kind of tumultuous a little bit. And so in that process of, not having my father around and my mom working so much to support us, in that process, I turned towards looking to the streets for that type of love and affection and that guidance that I wanted to, and ended up getting involved, and with a group of people who weren't essentially, so to say, good for my well-being. Growing up, no, the entrepreneur mindset and the fostering was not, it was not very well fostered, so to say.
We got in contact about the fact that you have a pretty cool story, or a really inspiring story, to better say it, about how you got the chance to change your life. And it's one of those stories that you don't hear very often, but they are extremely striking. So, Shawn, would you like to share it with us?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So going back to what we were talking about before, so those same group of guys, that I was involved with when I were younger, I was actually 18 or 19. So I was pretty much a late teen. I got into some trouble, got into some fight and got into some violent trouble where it actually ended up costing me 6 and a half years of my life. So I had to do 5 years, with 85% of that had to do behind the wall before I was eligible for parole. And pretty much what behind the wall means is just that I had to do 85% of my 6 years before I was eligible for parole. Now, going into that process, I kind of always had this sense of, destined for greatness, so to say. And so going into that, I knew that I wanted to make my life better, because up until that point, I felt spiritually dead. I felt physically dead. I felt like my life was at a standstill, and I was pretty much heading nowhere fast. To be honest, I thought at one point I was actually going to die from the way that I was living so recklessly.
What kind of life were you leading before, indeed, the moment you got imprisoned later on? What was your life like?
So I was living on the street. I was living on the streets. I was in and out of different friends' home who wanted to take care of me, because I was out on my own since the age of 14. So I was different friends, and their moms took me and sheltered me, fooled me, made sure I stayed in school and things like that. But I was bouncing from home to home consistently. So essentially, I was living in the streets, a young boy raising myself, and I was into drugs heavy. I was into gangs and gang violence. I was into a lot of things that essentially were headed me down the path eventually that I went to take. And so when I finally did end up having to be put into that situation where it was like where I was forced to sit down and reevaluate my life. When I was finally placed in that position, I knew that I didn't want to go back to where I had just come from. Okay. So going into prison, before my sentence even started, well before I was even sentenced, I knew that I was going to make that time, worth it. I was not going to come back. I was not going to go back to the life that I was living previously. And so that's essentially what I did.
What kind of actions did you take concretely to improve?
So as I have previously mentioned, going into it, I knew that I first needed to work on myself, and what that required was getting myself mentally right, physically right, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally right. Yeah. I needed to find that spiritual grounding that would take me from being selfish to being selfless. And what I mean by selfish is that, growing up at a young age, I had that mentality of I needed to make sure I was okay. As an individual, make sure I was okay, make sure I had food on my back, make sure I ate. Whereas I needed that spiritual connection to take me from me to, okay, me and the group. Like, how does my individual contributions better the group? And so having that spiritual connection allowed me to do that. Now emotionally, because I was running around angry, there was a lot of shame in my life, a lot of anger, a lot of disappointment, and so these are all these emotions and just pent up, unresolved feelings of, my childhood and everything like that had to be resolved. And in order for that to be resolved, I had to do the emotional work that was needed and necessary for me to come out on the end a better person. And then I also had to do the mental work. So there were a lot of negative thought patterns, a lot of bad schema that I was working from, experiences that I was working from that were coloring my perception and how I viewed the world. And in order for me to step forward into, this new being and this new person who I am, and be able to accept the world for what it is and not through the lens of what I thought it was as a child and as a teen, I needed to do the mental work needed to be able to come forward and knock that out. So the first step was figuring out and understanding and accepting the fact that these areas of my life I needed to work on. Once I figured that out, everything else was pretty much a smooth sailing, because from there I knew, okay, now so I had two major goals going into it. I knew, one, I wanted to get back home to my family without any infractions, and two, I wanted to I wanted to finish college. I wanted to go into college. So going into it, my first thing was I went to school for graphic design for a little bit because I was new in the building. And so I just had to do I wanted to do something constructive to fill my time until, a spot opened up for college, for me to go to college. And then once it did, I automatically enrolled in college, and I was going into college I was going into college in the system. The next thing I did was become the teacher's aide. So in becoming a teacher's aide, that did a number of things. That, one, allowed me to fill my time with something constructive, but two, also be able to help me give back by helping, the younger men inside the prison help get their GED and things like that. I started a little negotiating group. So some of the guys in there that, I was really close with, and that we had similar goals and things like that. So we did this group. We started this group where we worked on developing skills that could be useful for us once released.
Was there a person that was really guiding you through this whole process?
I wouldn't say a person, as the person that was guiding me through it was me and my motivation. However, I think what was helping me along was, it was more spiritual than it was physical. I knew I needed to get it done for me, and I knew I needed to get it done for my family. Most importantly, me, because I know that once I got it done for me, as a corollary effect, it would happen for everybody around me.
Yeah, because you made a major change in your life. You were on a different mindset. What happened the moment that you were free, in a way? What was your life like?
So in the prison that I was at, which was Garden State Youth Correctional Facility in New Jersey, we had something called, it's called the Mountain View program. Essentially what the Mountain View program is a program that it follows prospective men and women throughout their prison stays, and allows them to be able to enroll into Rutgers University. Being a TA was what aligned me on that path, because mind you, I didn't know about coming into the system. I didn't know about the program. I had no idea about the program. What happened was, so the teacher who I was a teacher's aide for, he also ran a public speaking program for like free time for people, along with a stock market program. And I was involved, and I was in both of those classes. He saw how well I went through the public speaking program. I was there I went all the way from, I think it was the treasurer, all the way up until the president. I left as the president of the program when I left the prison. So it was called Toastmasters International, actually. And I appreciate Toastmasters International for that, because that's actually how I developed my public speaking skills. But it was through him that I found out about the program. And so when he saw the transition from when I was became his teacher's aide until the time that I was leaving, I was his student, because at the time, I think they do things a little differently now, but at the time you had to be recommended into the program. Right. So someone from the prison had to recommend you to the program. And at that time, he saw the potential in me. He saw the growth. He saw the change. And so he was able to say, hey, listen, I see this in you. Would you want to, go the Rutgers program? And I was like, wait, what? A Rutgers program? Like, what are you talking about? And mind you, going in, I knew I wanted to complete college. I just didn't know how I was going to do it. I figured I'd get my associates while in prison, come home, and then do something different. So it was just like a big, wide eye opener. And I was like so elated. Like I stepped on the campus, and I was like, it was so many emotions going on at one time, because I was like happy and nervous, excited at the same time. And it was a whole big thing, but it was just like a breath of fresh air, because it was like, dang, I really did this. I made that, like I made this happen.
The fact that you went to university later on, and you've been through this whole path, where does the future lead you to?
So the future leads me to continuing to help others, like, and so my thing is you don't have to have had gone to prison. You don't have to even have a hard life. You may even just be going through something, or may not even know who you are, as a person, or even the direction that you want to go with your life. It's my job to help you discover who you are. So whether that's as your boss, whether that's as an inspiration, whether that's as a counselor, an advisor, a mentor, it doesn't matter. My job, or just somebody who you look up to. Butterflies are my symbol. That's my spirit animal, because one, I feel like butterflies are God's way of showing that we can all have a chance at a second life. But it's also symbolic for my personal, experience and journey, because before prison, I was that caterpillar crawling on my belly trying to get by. I went into prison, went into this cocoon, into this transforming incubus to come out this beautiful butterfly that I am. So that's my job. It's my job to help people go through that cocoon and emerge that beautiful butterfly that they are.
And indeed, if we reflect on the things you've learned and what you can give back to people, what would you say to yourself a few years ago if you were a mentor to a younger Shawn?
So knowing what I know now, unless a person wants to change and make that leap forward, it's not going to change. So I think my advice right now for anybody, especially youth, is that figure out who you are, and it's so easy to say figure out who you are. But what I mean by figure out who you are is find out what you value, because in understanding what you value, that's going to help you determine what to put in your life, how to create your atmosphere, how to create your space. There were 7 principles that I learned while being locked up that when I utilized and applied afterward, they are what helped me be successful. And that first principle is mindset, right? So you have to have that mindset. You know what I mean? Like you have to, and part of having the right mindset means that, you create the environment or the atmosphere necessary that's conducive for your growth. Part of having the right mindset, as an extension, you have to create the right environment. That's both physically in your surroundings, but that's also mentally, because everything else is an extension of that.
Thank you so much for your story.
No problem.
You were an inspiration.
Thank you for having me. It was an honor. It was a pleasure.
This was Shawn's story. Shawn got incarcerated for a few years after becoming part of a youth criminal gang. But being in prison became for him the possibility to change his life, as he got the chance to work hard on his mindset, his spirituality and practical skills to become a whole different person the moment he got free again. Shawn is an entrepreneur, a coach and a mentor, helping others to improve their lives thanks to his skills and his experience. This was the end of this episode. Have you ever had the chance to change your life, or do you know anybody who has? Please get in touch with us and leave a comment here below. And if you enjoyed this episode, do not forget to like and subscribe to this channel. And see you next time. Give me a chance, on your screen and in your ears.